Joining me now is National Senator M.Canavan. Great to see you, Matt, as always. Another week of climate policy chaos. Let's start with some good news that Australia is holding steady on the lowest rate of the international tariffs at 10%. What do you make of it, Matt?
Well, it is good news. It's good news for Australia. Perhaps Donald Trump, the president, hasn't really worked out where Australia is or what we are at this stage, and we can be happy with that. Maybe that vindicates the Prime Minister's attempt just to keep his head down. But I think this does also mask, though, other problems in the relationship, particularly on the security side of things. Obviously, there's a review of the AUKUS agreement going on at the moment, and more to the point that I've been making for the last few weeks is that the US administration has signalled through Pete Hegseth that they'd like to work with Australia to develop more manufacturing of 155mm artillery shells, guided weapons systems and radar repair facilities. And there's been basically zero response from the Australian government. Certainly nothing in public. These requests were made in public. They've also, of course, the US administration at the same time have asked us to lift our defence spending, which is reasonable if they're going to help us with our industrial capacity. You expect something like that, a quid pro quo. But there's just zero engagement on that, which, look, it's great that we're not facing the higher tariffs as some other countries, but there is another side of the relationship here that seems to be going missing because the Prime Minister's missing. The Prime Minister hasn't taken the effort to go to the United States and meet Donald Trump when 20 other world leaders have done so, including the President of Mauritania. Small countries in Africa have got audiences with the President, but our Prime Minister hasn't. It's getting on close to a year now since the President was elected, and it's hard to explain why the Prime Minister is seemingly running scared from Washington, D.C.
And Kevin Rudd runs around holding his Mardi Gras celebrations, but not quite getting as close to Trump as he would like. I want to move on now, Matt, to the Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, Climate Change and Energy Minister, dodging a direct question in Parliament. I thought Susan Lee was very, very good on this, on household power bills. Instead, he was trying to spin wholesale figures rather than household figures and fluctuating prices. He ducked and weaved, Chris Bowen, and arguably misled the Parliament. But here's the moment he tried to pull the wool over the public's eyes.
In New South Wales, the average wholesale price today is $127.72. The average at election was $320.48. In Queensland, the average today is $107.39. The average at Queensland was average on election day was $347.28. In South Australia, the average today is $185.27. The average on election day was $312.30.
So explain to us, Matt, what Chris Bowen was up to and why it was so disingenuous.
Yeah, well, there's two basic misleading points that Chris was making there. You've highlighted one, that he was quoting wholesale figures, so that's the prices that the transmission companies have to pay before they give the power to your house. So there's extra costs on top of that. The bigger perhaps issue, though, is he's quoting instantaneous, I think, by the looks of it, daily prices. You can tell it's misleading pretty clearly because Chris was saying that the price has gone from something like $300 a megawatt hour to around $100 a megawatt hour since the election. Has anyone's power bill reduced by a third? Or two-thirds, actually. Has anyone's power bill a third of what it was on election day? That doesn't seem to be right. So there's something a little bit fishy about these figures, isn't there? And so by just quoting daily figures, that's obviously completely absurd, because what we've actually seen this week from the Australian Energy Regulator is that the average of the wholesale price has gone up quite significantly. In fact, every state in Eastern Australia has seen really big increases in wholesale prices over the past few months, with the exception of New South Wales. They've stayed about the same, but not really good news for New South Wales. They're at the top as well. They've got massive wholesale power prices that you just haven't seen before. So yeah, the issue is that Chris Bowen promised Australian households that he would cut your power bills by $275. That was meant to become due this year. It obviously hasn't. They don't repeat that figure anymore. And now Australians are rightly asking, Chris, Ashton Kutcher in that famous movie. They're saying, dude, where's my cheaper power?
Matt, you have one of the best Twitter accounts, Senator M.Canavan. I follow it all the time, and I urge our viewers to do the same. You posted these figures from the ABS, which actually shows Australian electricity prices have more than tripled since we started mandating renewable energy, which is amazing. You also pointed out that coal, which I'll be talking about later, is the cheapest form of energy. But I want to ask you about this character, Simon Steele. He's the United Nations top climate chief, some long title he's got about the framework, this and that, da-da-da-da-da. He reckons that Australia is going to push the planet beyond boiling point, and by the year 2050 we'll only have one piece of fruit or vegetable a year. It'll be such a luxury. What is this nonsense? What's he talking about, Matt?
Well, I suppose, Rowan, my kids would probably cheer the fact of only having to have vegetables once a year. They'd be very happy with that. But I think everyone's just a little bit sick of these ridiculous and absurd Chicken Little style protestations from people, particularly how hypocritical they can be. And this particular UN climate czar was exposed for hypocrisy this week. Great work from Jeff Chambers there at the Australian, finding out that his job before he was the UN climate czar was as a parliamentarian in the Grenadian, I think, Parliament in the Caribbean there. And in that role, he actually helped pass a bill through the Grenada Parliament called the Hydrocarbon Incentives Bill. Now the Hydrocarbon Incentives Act. And he gave speeches promoting the fact that Grenada had to attract oil and gas investment to boost their fossil fuel production.
Fantastic. And finally, Matt, before you go, the Coalition, there's been talk in the newspaper this morning, the Coalition is facing pushback from some Liberal and National MPs on the question of support for Israel. What is going on here? I would be very, very unimpressed, let's put it mildly, if the Liberals start to waver in their support, or the Coalition starts to waver in its support for Israel. Your thoughts?
Look, Rowan, I support Israel, and I definitely want to see Hamas destroyed. Look, I've been a bit shocked at the images out of Palestine, and I know you've highlighted the misinformation that's occurred in the last week, but I've had my concerns for some time. I don't like the images of entire suburbs just levelled, and I realise it's very, very difficult for Israel. I understand that, but we've seen a Catholic church bombed in recent weeks.
I have to disagree with you there. I think what is absolutely fundamental is that the hostages are released and that Hamas is finished as a terrorist organisation. That's my take on it. Thanks, Matt. Speak to you again soon. And now it's time for a little something